Oh, happy hump day, my friends, and welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. On today's episode of the Prime, we're going to be giving you our Week 12 fantasy football rankings to get your lineup set. For some of your leagues, it's going to be crunch time. It's kind of winning in scenarios, a week before the playoffs. In other weeks, you got a couple more weeks before the playoffs start. But yeah, we're going to help you get your lineup set. We are currently live on Facebook, YouTube, and on the Huddle Sports Network. So thank you very much for checking us out there. And please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast if you like what we're doing here at Prime Sports World. I'm, of course, your host, David On Point Huffman. Right there is the CEO of this company, Mr. Israel Rivera. And Izzy, man, I am wasting one of my best fantasy football teams I've ever had in my league. Like, I'm the third highest scoring team of the freaking league, and I'm going to miss the playoffs. I'm 4-7.
How is that possible? Bad breaks.
I've literally gone up against the highest scoring team like every week. Like, it's just been a disaster. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
That was me. That was me probably last year in one of my leagues. I took L's.
Fantasy football is taking me by. Luckily, in Dan Kenny's league, I'm doing a lot better, although I did lose this most recent week. So let's not talk about that. But yeah, we're going to talk about week number 12. How did your week go with fantasy football this week?
I was 0-3 this week. Wasn't the greatest week for me.
Did you get Joe Mixon?
No, I don't think I did get Joe Mixon.
I almost Joe Mixon somebody else. Like in our league, I was out by 40. I was down by 40 points against Serrano.
Whoever had Joe Mixon, it was living life.
Except for me, so yeah, I lost anyways. I lost anyways by 4 points. But let's get into week number 12. I don't have to talk about my fantasy woes anymore. Let's talk about week number 12 and a lot of interesting matchups in fantasy and a lot of players, key players on a bye this week. So if you were riding with your Bengals, they're all on a bye. If you were riding with your Buffalo Bills this week, they're all on a bye. So kind of make some decisions here in the National Football League this week if you're playing in fantasy because your guys that got you there probably not going to be available in a really important week in fantasy. Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Saints, Jets, Jaguars, all on a bye this week. So something to consider. So let's go into my quarterback rankings, and I got the same guy at 1 as you do at 1. Actually, our first two guys are exactly the same. Jane Daniels, as you mentioned on the podcast yesterday, if you were able to hang out and watch the show yesterday, from the Daily Blitz.blog, Kristen Simpson said this could be a little bit of a get-right game for Jane Daniels and the Washington Commanders. You know, they haven't played exceptional football over the last few weeks, and this Dallas Cowboys team is a mess. So he could easily get back on track during this game. And they got Lamar Jackson at number 2. I mean, Baltimore Ravens going up against the Chargers in the Harbaugh Bowl. We saw what that Chargers defense was giving up against the Cincinnati Bengals last week. And then number 3, you got Justin Herbert in that same game in the Harbaugh Bowl. I just think that Justin Herbert's been on his game he played last week. He was throwing FDRs all over the field. That Bengals defense or the Ravens defense can be gotten in the passing game for sure. For Jalen Hurts, I think that's a good matchup there for the Philadelphia Eagles as they go up against the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday Night Football. And then 5, Kyler Murray has quietly had a really sneaky good fantasy football season. And in the same game, Geno Smith, as I expect that to be a shootout. Number 7, Jared Goff. He's just been otherworldly so far this season. Really good against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. And he's going to kind of against the cupcake matchup here too in the Indianapolis Colts. Bo Nix is in my top 10 this week after his virtuoso performance last week against the Atlanta Falcons. Look for him to do similar things against the Las Vegas Raiders. 9, Baker Mayfield going against the Giants and Tommy DeVito. 10, Brock Purdy. Look for him to bounce back against your Green Bay Packers, who can be had in the passing game. And then I got Jordan Love in my outside looking in. The same thing can be said about the San Francisco 49ers. They can also be had in the passing game. CJ Stroud. I think this is going to be a good matchup for CJ Stroud. He's going up against the Tennessee Titans, a team that's just not good right now. And then Caleb Williams is my third outside looking in guy. I liked what I saw out of him this most recent week against a good Green Bay Packers defense. This Minnesota Vikings team, I know they rush, they blitz a lot, but I think the secondary can be had in that game. I look for Caleb Williams to maybe have a have a good matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. Then my Sneaky and Daily, that's right, give us some cutlets of Tommy DeVito at 4,000, who was just named the starter for the New York Football Giants as Tommy DeVito. And for some reason, Tim Boyle is still in the NFL, so who knows?
Did you see that? I was like, I had to send that to you because I'm like, dude, did Daniel Jones just get benched behind Tim Boyle? QB4. I cannot believe that. When you are relegated to being a backup behind Tim Boyle, it's gotten bad for you in the league.
Yeah,
it's
for sure. For sure.
Seriously.
But yeah, Tommy DeVito, I'm rolling with the dice with him. I think he's going to throw the football a lot. And he's going up against Tampa Bay. They can be had in the secondary for sure.
So Tommy DeVito on FanDuel is FanDuel is a little high, is a little higher in points or money wise. Yeah. It's different from DraftKings and FanDuel. It's pretty much like 6,000 to 4,000 is pretty much the same. So he's 6,000 in FanDuel. And I knew one of us had to pick him, and I had a feeling I'm like, you know what, David might pick him. I'll go with his boy Gardner Minshew at 6,500, who I think
Gardner Minshew hasn't been my boy this season. Let me tell you,
I know.
I love me some Gardner Minshew, but he's been ass.
But dude, let me tell you, when he's throwing it 40 times, I gotta roll with him at 6,500 because that's exactly what he's doing. He's throwing it 40 times, and he's gonna get you some touchdowns. He's gonna get you some interceptions. He might get a rushing touchdown against I expect that Denver Broncos game in Vegas to be a little funky, in my opinion. I expect a little bit of maybe some high scoring affair between both of them. I just have this feeling. I just have this feeling. Anyways, number one, yes, you're right, Jaden Daniels. I think this is a get right game going against Dallas. Putrid defense. They've kind of mailed it in already this season. So yeah, I think Jaden Daniels has, maybe a rushing touchdown, a couple passing touchdowns, no turnovers. I think he's definitely going to be up there in the top 3. I got him at number 1. I think he could expose that defense, maybe throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns and rush for 1. Lamar Jackson at number 2. At 3, Jalen Hurts. Lamar Jackson against the Chargers. That can be a back and forth game in terms of scoring.
I expect that to be kind of a shootout.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I like Lamar Jackson in Los Angeles. And then at 3, I got Jalen Hurts, who is questionable right now with a what the heck is he? It's just a maintenance issue. Yeah. I mean, he's been banged up long season. I expect him to play. And number 4, Kyler Murray. You're right. He's had a great season so far. I had a little bit. I had a little bit of my son's Gatorade. He looked at me like, dude, what? Why is this? Anyways, I got Justin Herbert. Like you said, he was throwing dimes all over the field. I like that matchup against Baltimore. FDRs, my bad. The new term is FDRs. At number 6, I got Patrick Mahomes going up against the Carolina Panthers this week. And number 7, yes, Bo Nix.
Patrick Mahomes in my top, my super
top 10. Yeah, I think. Oh well, you know what? Honestly, when you look at the rankings,
I mean, they're going to get Isaiah Pacheco back. I expect them to run the football a lot in that game.
Yeah. So, when you have Bo Nix. I mean, when you have Carolina coming into town, I think Patrick Mahomes should be in your top 10. At number 7, I got Bo Nix, who's just got.
I'm probably way too low on Patrick Mahomes.
And at number 7, I got Bo Nix.
Especially an angry Patrick Mahomes coming off their first loss of the season. Yeah, I'm probably going to I'm going to look real stupid on Monday.
With Carolina coming into town, like he's going to have a nice little game. And then we'll get to that question afterwards. And then number 7, Bo Nix had 4 touchdowns last week. I think he's getting better and better as a starter. We're not talking about him enough as being one of the best rookies, period, in the class. I mean, we talk about Jaden Daniels, we talk about Caleb Williams, and now Bo Nix is just starting to come on as a really good quarterback. Sean Payton's starting to develop him. At number 8, Baker Mayfield should be getting Mike Evans back this week. That's a big help. I like that matchup. At number 9, Jared Goff. And then round out the top 10. You know what, David? I was a homer when I picked this one. You got Brock Purdy, and I got Jordan Love. And look where Brock Purdy is, my number 1 on the outside looking in, because I cannot allow a San Francisco 49er to be above my Green Bay Packer quarterback. That is dead issue. Jordan Love against the San Francisco 49ers is in my top 10 this week. At number 2, the second outside looking at CJ Stroud, and then Geno Smith, who I think that game could be potentially a shootout with Arizona.
I agree. Last time we predicted a shootout, it ended up not being. But I think
I know we predicted shootouts and they're not. We predicted shootouts and then they happen to be duds.
I think Arizona and Seattle is going to be a shootout. Like I could see that game being like a 38-35 affair.
Yeah, sure. and then I talked about Gardner Minshew. He's my sneaky option.
I'm not touching Gardner Minshew.
He's throwing the ball. Look, ladies and gentlemen,
he's got Brock Bowers. He's got Brock Bowers and literally
nobody else.
And Amir Abdullah too.
And that's it. I'm glad you brought up Amir Abdullah. Anyways, and then we got a question here by
Dolo Rip Duke. I think that's how you pronounce it. I apologize if I butchered that up.
Dolo R.I.P. Duke
on Garrett Wilson. He's my wide receiver number 1. So first of all, he's on a bye this week. So you're obviously not playing him this week, anyways.
Right.
As your wide receiver 1, I would be concerned. I mean, he's been okay. You expect him to have another performance after the 2 touchdown game against the Houston Texans, but he's kind of followed it up with just 2 mediocre games in a row. And I mean, the schedule does get sort of easier. I mean, you get Seattle, that could be a good game for their offense. They got a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got a game against the Rams. That could potentially be a good game for that. But in between those games, they got 2 games with Buffalo still left, and they got 1 game one with Buffalo and 2 with the Miami Dolphins on their schedule. If Garrett Wilson is my wide receiver 1, I would be semi-concerned.
And you're already past the trade deadline. Most people are past trade deadlines in their leagues, so you can't even trade them, so you're stuck with them. That's a hard one, brother. I'm sorry, man, but it's funny because my friend had Garrett Wilson, and he wanted to trade me for Tyrone Tracy. And I said, I don't want Garrett Wilson for Tyrone Tracy. Are you serious? I don't want any of your players. And he's like, I'll give you Garrett Wilson. I'm like, no, I don't want to touch Garrett Wilson. He stinks, right? Well, he doesn't stink. He's just on a terrible team right now. And he's
I also think
every bit of 42.
If the Jets lose another game, I think there's a real scenario where Aaron Rodgers gets shut down for the rest of the regular season. If they lose one more, I think that'll be it. We will not see Aaron Rodgers again this season.
Absolutely.
I would be pretty concerned if he's my wide receiver 1, especially going into this week. I'll be interested to see who the rest of your wide receivers are. Maybe you have a better option as your quote-unquote wide receiver 1.
But bro, David, at this point, you have to start him though, right? If he's your wide receiver 1, you have to. There's no other wide receiver. It's not like
I'm sorry, it's just the facts. I'm sorry.
But hold on. But let me say this. It's not like I'm in a horrible position with wide receivers. I have Mike Evans. No, I have Keenan Allen, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's been heating up lately, and Romeo Doubs is my starting 3 wide receivers. And that's on that team with Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, and James Cook. So last week, my wide receivers were poo last week. And it just caught up to me having trash wide receiver 2 and 3 wide receivers, wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 wide receivers starting. So, yeah.
Speaking of wide receivers, let's get right into those. All right. I lied. We're going to running backs next. I'll let you swing into your running back rankings.
Yes.
Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, man. Number 1 running back's got to be Saquon Barkley this week. I like that matchup. Going up against the LA Rams. I think that could be a potential, high scoring affair, but I like Saquon. I don't necessarily like their run defense. I think that, there's something to be had there. I think Saquon will have a big game. And number 2, I got Christian McCaffrey. 3, Derrick Henry. And let me speak on Christian McCaffrey a little bit. He's starting to, they're easing him in the offense a little bit more and more, and going up against Green Bay. I know they have a top 10 run defense, but they're big on chunk. You can get chunk plays out of them. And so I think Christian McCaffrey has a bunch of those this weekend. And number 3, I got Derrick Henry. 4, Joe Mixon, who had a hell of a game on Monday Night Football. Going up against the Tennessee Titans defense is pretty stout. Titans defense, better pass defense than run defense, but Tennessee is a pretty decent defense altogether. I still expect Joe Mixon.
Tennessee Titans had the number 5 defense in terms of yards allowed per game.
It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
If they had competent quarter play, even a little bit.
If they had Marcus Mariota, or if Ryan Tannehill can come back and turn back the clock or something like that, they're in line for a quarterback really bad
For sure.
In this draft. And then at number 5, I got Devin Achane. At number 6, James Conner. 7, Jahmyr Gibbs. I like, it seems like week after week, it's like, okay, David Montgomery's got the rock, or he's got the mic. Jahmyr Gibbs got the mic. So I think this week, Jahmyr Gibbs will have the mic, especially against Indianapolis, who hasn't been a great run defense at all this season. Number 8, I got Tyron Tracy. Yes, I know going up against Tampa Bay, but I think Tyron Tracy have a good defense. I mean, Tampa Bay's middle of the pack defense.
Tyron Tracy has almost become matchup proof in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's just getting the ball regardless. So he's gonna get you, at least 100 yards. I'm so impressed with him. Playing a limited amount of time, like a couple years, and at Toledo. At running back, he started off as a wide receiver, and I mean, just having those limited amount of reps and how good and how great a ball vision he has, and then he's a matchup problem catching the ball at the backfield. They put him in the slot sometimes. He's a matchup problem when it comes to catching on passing downs. He's your prototypical, what you want to say, new age 3-down back, because if teams are throwing the football, he's out there. And Devin Singletary isn't ripping into any of his. He's doing a little bit, but it's not like heavily where Devin Singletary's, ripping into some of his reps. At number 9, I got Kyron Williams, and then round out the top 10, I gotta have Josh Jacobs in there. I know he's a little bit banged up, he's questionable right now, but I think he will play. It's a big game against San Francisco. Playoff rematch. Packers are up for it. And then outside looking in, I got Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker III going up against Arizona. I think he'll have a big game against Arizona. I'm a little low on him because I think Arizona can get up a couple touchdowns on them, and then they'll start throwing the football. You get what I'm saying, David? And then they'll just abandon the run. Yeah, and then they'll start abandoning the run. I see them a lot on a lot of media pundits, fantasy guys, top 10s. I'm like, I'm going to pump the brakes on Kenneth Walker being in my top 10, because if that game gets a little bit, out of control, maybe Arizona's up 2 touchdowns, 10 points. We've seen Seattle just ditch the run this season, and I just kind of scared as a Kenneth Walker, owner. If I would be scared as a Kenneth Walker owner. And then number 3, I got David Montgomery. I mean, he's almost, especially against Indianapolis, him and Jahmyr Gibbs are just almost penciled in to get a touchdown this week. Yep. I love it this year with Detroit. You got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And then my sneaky option in FanDuel is Amir Abdullah. Yes, plays for the Raiders. He's cheap at $5,000. He had a touchdown last week. And expect for him to get more touches, especially if Zamir White and who's the other running back here? Alexander Mattison, is out. Both of those guys have some questionable injury designations going into this game against Denver.
So I see you right there, Dolo. So you sent us your wide receivers. Your wide receiver is Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 1. Probably moving forward, he's probably your most consistent wide receiver you have on your team. I also really like JSN, and I like Ladd McConkey going forward. Juwan Jennings, I think almost,
yeah.
So
I actually almost start those 3 guys over. I'd take Garrett Wilson out the lineup, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't do all that, but I would for sure be doing Deebo Samuel and JSN. I just think that those offenses are going to be more impactful going forward. And I think I like the upside of Ladd McConkey. Let's see what he does against this Ravens team this week.
Why didn't you try? Let me ask this guy something, and you answer it back in the comments, Dolo. Why didn't you trade Juwan Jennings? If you have Juwan Jennings, why didn't you trade him at the trade deadline? Because why do you have 2 San Francisco wide? Don't make that same mistake that I have. I have JSN and I have DK Metcalf in a league, and it's very hard to start one over the other, in my opinion. Sometimes.
From your running backs, let's talk about mine. And my number 1 guy is Joe Mixon, fresh off that 35-point performance. I don't expect him to get 35 points, but I think he's going to have a good game against the Tennessee Titans. 2, Derrick King Henry going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. We saw what Chase Brown did. He was a pretty effective. Derrick Henry should have that kind of impact. Chris McCaffrey starting to percolate a little bit. He's getting more heavily involved in the offense every single week. Kenneth Walker, the 3rd at number 4. Going up against the Arizona Cardinals. I know their run defense has been better, but I think Kenneth Walker is going to be heavily involved in that passing game. He'll also be heavily involved in their running game. And then you see I got number 5. I got Saquon Barkley. I think this Rams front 7 is underrated. I think they've done a good job against the run over the last couple weeks. I think they could limit Saquon Barkley a little bit there. Also, he keeps getting hawked touchdowns by Jalen Hurts. Man, if he, I think he's had like 9 runs that ended within like inside the 1 yard line where he didn't get the touchdown. Like, imagine what his fantasy numbers would be if he got 9 touchdowns on top of that. Number 6, James Conner. Yeah, I just think he's going to have a good game against that Seattle team. I think that's going to be a high-scoring affair. 7, Jonathan Taylor going up against the Detroit Lions. I think you can run a little bit against the Detroit Lions. Look for Jonathan Taylor to have a decent game. And then 8, Jahmyr Gibbs. I just expect Detroit to get up by so much. I don't know if he's going to have the impact that he normally would have. That's why he's at number 8. 9, Brian Robinson Jr. Nice to see him get back in the lineup last week, although it was in a losing effort for the Washington Commanders. But it's good to see him back on the football field, getting touchdowns. Should have a really good game against the Dallas Cowboys. And then 10, Najee Harris. Whenever the Pittsburgh Steelers give Najee Harris the rock, they tend to win football games. And then Chuba Hubbard is my outside looking in. I know he's high on Chuba Hubbard. I'm high on him too. But this is probably not his best matchup going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, but he's really all they got. And they want to take pressure off of that young quarterback. So Chuba Hubbard will have some carries. 2, Kyron Williams going against the Philadelphia Eagles. And then 3, J.K. Dobbins as he continues what is probably going to be a comeback player of the year award for J.K. Dobbins, as he's just been the story behind him, how useful he's been, how valuable he's been on the Chargers. And this is also his former team. He wants to kind of show them that they gave up on him too early. J.K. Dobbins should have a good game against the Baltimore Ravens. And then by sneaky and daily, I got Amir Abdullah, same guy as you at 4,300. And I got Kyle Juszczyk at 4,000. I just think that he's going to be I think he's going to be involved in the passing game a little bit. I've looked up his numbers of what he did against in the past against the Green Bay Packers. I kind of thought he had better numbers against Green Bay, but that's actually not the case at all. He's actually been pretty pedestrian against the Green Bay Packers. But I would Kyle Juszczyk. If you want to go deep sleeper, roll some deep dice. Kyle Juszczyk at 4,000.
That is crazy. All right, let me ask you something. Okay, Audric Estime or Javonte Williams? Who would you rather have?
Javonte Williams.
But they're splitting that timeshare, and Javonte Williams had the touchdown, but I feel like Audric Estime is like, I don't know, man. He's running that ball super. Both of them are running the ball super hard. I just feel like, man, Javonte Williams with his injury history, I think he's just one play away from just like tearing an ankle, and then Audric Estime takes it over.
Like everybody's the Denver situation, because they had Tyler Beatty, who was like really good for like 1 week, and then they got Jordan McLaughlin, who was like a darling in the preseason. People were like, "Yeah, this guy's gonna be the 3rd down back," and he hasn't been relevant at all. So who knows, man? Who knows?
Well, I want to say this though. I think that, you know, like if you picked up Audric Estime, I mean, you probably picked him up a couple weeks ago off the waiver wire. I mean, the dude is paying dividends off for you, and he had 60-something yards. He didn't have a touchdown, but he still ripped off 66 yards. I think he probably had 7 points in PPR or something like that. So if he got a touchdown, I mean, he's giving you double-digit points, and you got him off the waiver wire. I mean, yeah, if you have both of those guys, like if you got him off the waiver wire as a handicap, it's a tough situation as if you have both of those guys.
And Dolo is rolling with all of the 49ers. Man, he's got Chris McCaffrey and George Kittle, but he's 7-4, so kudos you on that, man. It sounds like you got a pretty decent squad there.
Absolutely.
I think your wide receiving situation is pretty solid, actually. So
yeah, in my opinion, yeah.
So I think you could certainly be doing worse. I promise you that.
Yeah,
from there, let's talk about them running backs, our wide receivers, and my number 1 guy is the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has just been incredible this season. I mean, he was good last season, the season before that, but this season, last week, he had 11 catches, 11 targets, 3 touchdowns for the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown. The dude has just been awesome in PPR scoring. He just doesn't drop passes thrown to him by Jared Goff. He just doesn't. He
caught that 1 touchdown pass, 42-6, and I screamed at the Lions. I was like, "You guys are running the score against the who are they playing?
Jaguars.
Jacksonville. You guys are running up the score against Jacksonville. You're 42-6. You're still tossing touchdowns. And Lions fans are like, man, deal with it.
Yeah. And then number 2, I got AJ Brown going up against the Los Angeles Rams. And number 3, I got Justin Jefferson. I do think I literally thank you very much, Oliver. We appreciate a follow, man. Please like, share, and subscribe to us here on the podcast. We appreciate
Spread the word,
man.
buddy.
Number 3, Justin Jefferson going up against my Chicago Bears. I think Jalen Johnson's going to be on him for a majority of the game. He's done a good job against Justin Jefferson over the course of his career. So I think that's going to be a good match. I still would start him if you got him, but I would temper my expectations just a little bit. 4, scary Terry McLaurin. I think he'll bounce back from what was an abysmal performance in week number 11, where he put up 2 fantasy points and burnt me bad in a league. 5, Nico Collins. He came back last week, showed that he is healthy. 6, Tyreek Hill got in the end zone back-to-back weeks. 7, Cortland Sutton. I think it's time to stop sleeping on these Denver Bronco wide receivers. As Bo Nix, if you're a Bo-lever in Bo Nix, you got to roll the dice on Cortland Sutton. Oh, I know, right? Yeah.
David's just dropping gems here.
And then we got DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks. I think that's going to be a high-scoring affair against the Arizona Cardinals. And in that same game, Maserati Marv of the Arizona Cardinals. I know he's had an up and down rookie season, but I think they're going to get him more heavily involved as we go down the stretch here, especially off that bye week. And then I got Malik, will you be my neighbor's neighbors? Going up against the Giants. I think Tommy DeVito was still going to feed him the targets. I think his target share is going to be absurd. I think if you got Malik Neighbors, you still start him. And then my outside looking in, I got Deebo Samuel Sr. of the San Francisco 49ers, George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers, going up against the Cleveland Browns tomorrow night, and then Cooper freaking Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams. Although that secondary for Philadelphia has been on another level this season. And they have basically shut down wide receivers, at least over the last month or so. So I would also temper my Cooper Kupp expectations. If you have somebody else, I would probably roll the dice with somebody else. And then my sneaky and daily on DraftKings, I got Nick Westbrook-Akine at 4,100. Fun fact about Nick Westbrook-Akine, he is responsible for the longest touchdown of the season this year so far. And yes, that means the Tennessee Titans have the longest touchdown in terms of yards so far this season. The Titans, who have won 2 games so far this year. Adonai Mitchell, 3,900. I think him and Anthony Richardson have a pretty nice rapport there with those 2 guys. He was really important on that final drive where they were able to get that ball down so Anthony Richardson scored the game-winning touchdown. And then Marvin Mims Jr. at 3,200. His kick return numbers, if you're in a league where they allow kick return numbers, also I think I like how they use him in the offense. He just kind of is just one of those gadget players now. 3,200 for Marvin Mims Jr. I would roll those dice on that guy.
Yeah, Marvin Mims Jr. Is it Denver, correct?
Denver, yes.
I have another Denver wide receiver here that I'll be talking about later on in the show, in these rankings. But yes, rolling my stuff out, I got Justin Jefferson here at number 1 going up against your Chicago Bears. Yes, I think Justin Jefferson should have a good game. They'll feed him a lot, but he will be blanketed a little bit by Jalen Johnson and the rest of that secondary, depending on whatever happens there. And number 2, I got AJ Brown. 3, yes, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a little lower on him. I do expect a little bit of Kenny Moore being put on him a little bit. Nickelback. Yeah, I like Kenny Moore in that matchup. He's fundamentally sound DB from the Colts. So Amon-Ra St. Brown. I see a lot of him. So you might look for like Jameson Williams to break one here again in that game. And number 4, Nico Collins. 5, Puka Nacua. And look, number 6, Cooper Kupp. Both of them. They are just like yin and yang. They're both perfect. They both complement each other in that offense. They don't, one doesn't need the ball over the other. They both are just amazing. And Matthew Stafford just finds them. At number 7, Terry McLaurin. Yes, a get right game for Terry McLaurin. I think he's a top 10 wide receiver this week. Number 8, Tyreek Hill. Yes, I like that matchup with Tyreek Hill going up against New England. I still think he's top 10, a little lower. New England's got a pretty stout defense. And number 9, Malik Neighbors. And then round on my top 10 is George Pickens. And then on the outside looking in, I got Jackson Smith and Jigba. Actually, I really should have put Jackson Smith and Jigba in like my top 6. I think he's going to have a big game against Arizona. I think I'm going to eat this one this week and just take the L.
I would rather have DK Metcalf, but that's just
it's I know, but
but I think both of those guys. I think both of those guys are going to have value. So,
and then I got Mike Evans, who's coming back off the injury against New York, and then at number 3 in my outside looking at, I got Zay Flowers going up against the Chargers, and then my sneaky option in FanDuel is Lil Jordan Humphrey at 5,000. Lil Jordan Humphrey from the Denver Broncos has had a pretty good last couple of weeks, especially last week. Had a good rapport with Bo Nix. So look out for Lil Jordan Humphrey in that offense for Denver. Wide receiver out of Texas from a few years back. I was undrafted 2018, 2019.
Yeah, spent a lot of time with in the New Orleans Saints system as a member of with Sean Payton, and then comes over here to Denver. Has been pretty solid for them the last couple of weeks. And the only reason I don't have Mike Evans in my he probably should be where Cooper Kupp is, to be totally honest with you. But I get concerned that like Tampa Bay doesn't. They won't really. I don't think they should need Mike Evans to beat the New York Giants. Like I just think that his snap count might be a little bit limited. Based on him coming off that hamstring injury. Yeah, I just don't think they're going to give him a full workload. But if he gets in the end zone, I mean, he's a matchup nightmare.
So, I don't like those injuries either. They're just like one play away from.
We already saw like he was dealing with a hamstring injury, and then he basically re-aggravated it in that last game against the Atlanta Falcons, I think it was. Basically was lost for the season. So hate to see it. Or at least lost for a few weeks. But yeah, from your wide receivers, let's talk about them bulkier pass catchers, the tight ends, and we got the same guy at number 1 and 2, actually, and 3.
Listen, put him at number 1 until Travis. Look, hey, I'm telling you, he's the best tight end in football right now. Brock freaking Bowers at number 1. He is your diaper dandy, baby. As Dick Vitale will say, he is amazing. Yes, he's amazing because he's getting 15 targets a game. Okay, yes. And he's catching at least 10 of them, and he's going for 100 yards. And he's the only guy on the Raiders offense that's actually worth a damn owning. So Brock Bowers, and man, I swear, I got him so late in the draft. I got him like late in the draft.
If you're somebody that like is one of those, if you're one of those drafters who like waits on tight end and you're the last person to draft the tight end, you're sitting super pretty right now. Like you took Brock Bowers, you took a flyer on him, and it's paying off in a big way.
Big way. And then at number 2, I got Travis Kelce. Yes, the days. You know what? I'm so sorry, Travis. I'm so sorry. I used to say this all the time. Put you at number 1. Yeah, but I think you've met your match. Because that's why Brock Bowers is number 1. He's going to remain number 1 all season long until you can show me and prove to me that you're consistently better than Brock Bowers in fantasy. And that's not going to happen. At number 3, Trey McBride. Yes, he's been amazing as well. At number 4, I got George Kittle. Number 5, round of the top 5, Will Dissly, who's been sneaky good the last 3, 4, 5. Man, I can't even, like 4 or 5 weeks he's been.
He basically never caught touchdowns when he was in Seattle, and now all he does is catch touchdowns as a member of the Los Angeles Chargers. So I think he's had a touchdown in 3 straight weeks.
It takes an amazing coach to kind of get you back on track there. And then at number 7, I got Cade Otton. Number 6, I got Cade Otton. Number 7, I got TJ Hawkins. And 8, David Njoku. David Njoku against Pittsburgh. I think he's the only one of the only guys that I think that Dave James is going to air it out anyways. And who had
I like Cedric Tillman, but outside of Cedric Tillman,
Jerry Jeudy. And then at number 9, Jonnu Smith, and then round out the top 10 is Hunter Henry, who Drake May's been looking at pretty much every game this season. And now outside looking in, I got Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, who always seems to just turn it on in the fourth quarter. Like the first 3 quarters, he just absent, and then the fourth quarter, he just ends up with like 60 yards and a touchdown. It's crazy. Like the last game they played, where he got the 2-point conversion as well. Did he get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion?
I don't. Did he get? I know he got a touchdown in garbage time.
He got a touchdown, and then
I don't remember. I don't remember if he got the octopus or not.
No, he got the 2-point conversion too. I think he got the 2-point conversion.
Then I guess he got the octopus.
He got I think he got the octopus. I mean, it was crazy. I think Zach Ertz just turned
You can thank Scott Hansen for that reference right there.
Yeah, and then Sam Laporta, right outside looking in. And then my cheap option in FanDuel is Noah Gray. Yes, the second tight end in Kansas City, caught 2 touchdown passes last week. He's cheap at 5,000. If anything, I think Noah Gray has another similar performance against the Carolina Panthers this week.
I do not think Noah Gray. Noah Gray had his first multi-touchdown game of his entire career. He's been in the league for what? But yeah, I don't hate it though. I mean, we got to roll the dice. But that's what the Sneaky and Daily is all about.
Yes.
From your tight ends, let's talk about mine. Our 3 guys are exactly the same, and it's the exact same for the exact same reason. Brock Bowers, Travis Kelce, Trey McBride have just been the best tight ends so far this season. Number 4, I got Cade Otton. I will be honest with you. I did these rankings when I wasn't sure if Mike Evans was going to play. He does seem like he's on projected to play. So maybe I would have Cade Otton a little bit lower, but I do think he's going to be still pretty heavily involved in their passing game. So I would, if you've been rolling with Cade Otton basically since Mike Evans and Chris Godwin got hurt, I still expect him to have, the 10 targets a game. Like, I don't think that's going to magically disappear. 5, Will Dissly. Yeah, we're the same way. We both got him at 5. I just think that he's been so heavily involved, and him and Justin Herbert have such a good rapport with each other. 6, Hunter Henry seems to be the escape valve for Drake May, over the last month or so since, he's basically been the starting quarterback there. 7, George Kittle. Yeah, a little bit lower on George Kittle. But I think the Green Bay Packers have the linebacking core to kind of limit him a little bit, but we'll see. Number 8, TJ Hawkinson. I'll be honest with you. I think I might be too high on TJ Hawkinson going up against my Chicago Bears. And I'll let you know, I was not wrong where I had him ranked last week. And you said I was going to end up eating those words when he had 13 yards receiving against the Tennessee Titans last week. Izzy, 2 catches for 13 yards against the Titans. So, and then I got number 9. I got David Njoku. 10, Jonnu Smith. Do not expect him to have 2 touchdowns again this week. But he's been one of the more reliable pass catchers for the Miami Dolphins so far this season. So look for him to continue to have that kind of rapport with Tua Tagovailoa. And then number 1 on my outside looking in, I got Sam Laporta, Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Isaiah Likely. I think you can interchange Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely had the better week last week. Mark Andrews had the better games when Isaiah Likely was out with the injury for 2 weeks. So who knows at this point. I prefer to have Isaiah Likely. I think he's a little more higher upside, a little more athletic, but I don't think you can go wrong with either of those 2 guys. And then my Sneaky and Daily, if you want to go deep into the vault and get real cheap at the tight end position, I'm rolling with Theo Johnson of the Giants. He's part of this Giant rookie class. Had a touchdown last week before with their bye from Danny Dimes, or Danny Pennies as he likes to call him. But I think Theo Johnson, he's the starting tight end there now for the New York Giants. And he's quietly had a pretty solid season at the tight end position, 21 catches, 238 yards, and a touchdown. I'll be interested to see what kind of rapport he has with Tommy DeVito as he steps into that starting quarterback position. But he has not had less than 30 yards receiving in any game in the last 3 games. So
Theo. Yeah, I think he's definitely. I'll take it over. Who's the other one? Daniel Bellinger. I take him over Daniel Bellinger all day, especially for New York Giants tight end.
Chris Manhertz. So I would,
whoever.
From the tight end, let's swing into the other side of the ball. Let's talk about that defense. Number 1 is the Denver Broncos going up against the Gardner Minshew-led Las Vegas Raiders. I just think that's going to be a tough day at the office for Gardner Minshew and that Raiders offense. 2 Houston Texans going up against the Tennessee Titans. I know Will Levis didn't throw a pick last week, or 2 weeks ago, actually. He'll throw at least 1 pick in this game. 3 Pittsburgh Steelers going against Jameis Winston. He's prone to turning the football over. 4 Kansas City Chiefs in a get-right game against the Carolina Panthers. I think this defense is going to feast on that offense. And then 4, the Miami Dolphins. I'm pretty high on the Miami Dolphins going up against the New England Patriots. This Dolphins defense, if you watched our show yesterday, they've been stymied. Like, they've been stifling the last 2 weeks. They basically have bottled up two two NFL offenses in the Los Angeles Rams and the Raiders. Yeah, the Raiders the this most recent week. Look for them to have a similar effect to going up against the New England Patriots. And then I got the Lions, Bears, and Commanders as my outside looking in. I really like that Commanders offense. And then my sneaky or defense, my sneaky and daily Dolphins at 3,100. I even like the Commanders even more if they for some reason between now and the start of that game decide that Trey Lance is going to be the starting quarterback of the Cowboys this week. I like the Commanders even more in that particular matchup.
Jeez Louise, man. Yeah. That would be. I think you can't go wrong with either Cooper Rush or Trey Lance.
Yeah,
they should just start Trey Lance.
If you're the Dallas Cowboys, this season's in the toilet. You might as well find out what you have in Trey Lance and just let him play the rest of the season. What does it matter?
What do you got to lose? What do you got to lose? Yeah, exactly. My number one defense this week is going to be the Houston Texans. Getting Nico Collins back, I think it's something that says I know I'm talking about their offense, but that gives their defense a little bit more room for comfort, especially against the Tennessee Titans offense that is just absolutely abysmal in my opinion. So I like the Houston Texans defense as the number one defense this week. And they had a few turnovers. I think they had a couple touchdowns last week as well.
One touchdown, and they had
one touchdown last week and the one pick. And then and then at number 2, I got the Kansas City Chiefs going into Carolina. That we all know how good that Chiefs defense is. I think they're gonna just wreak havoc on that Carolina Panthers offense. They'll make Bryce Young look like how he looked at the beginning of the season and last year in this game. And then at number 3, I got the Detroit Lions going up against Anthony Richardson and the Colts. Even though I am kind of risking it a little bit because that game has some track meet to it, in my opinion.
I also think it has like potential like trap game to it as
for
well.
Detroit. Yeah,
for Detroit.
Yeah. But I feel like them if all things are going smooth, I still like the Detroit Lions. Their defense, they're the most complete.
And I think they have the mentality of their head coach. Like I don't think Dan Campbell is going to allow them to be complacent. Like I think they're gonna they're not going to look over the Colts for the Packers in a matchup they got in a couple weeks, or the Buffalo Bills and after that, or their rematch or against the San Francisco 49ers or that Vikings game to end of the season. Like I think they'll stay locked in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then number 4, I got the Denver Broncos going up against Las Vegas. Because Gardner Minshew will probably give you a couple of interceptions in that game. And then at number 5, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against Cleveland because Jameis Winston will probably give you 3 of them on that end. And then on my outside looking in, I got the Bucks going against the Giants, the Vikings going against the Bears, and I got the Commanders going up against the Dallas Cowboys. And then our cheap option in FanDuel is the Chicago Bears at 3,900 at home. Got Minnesota coming in. If Minnesota's offense hasn't really been the greatest in the last couple of weeks, in my opinion. And I think the Chicago Bears, they play some of the best red zone defense in the NFL. We saw last week Jordan Love threw a pick against them, and they play really good defense against that Packers offense. So I expect them to play some great defense, kind of get right game. I wouldn't say get right game, but they'll play with a lot more intensity after dropping that close one against Green Bay last week.
And that's been our Week 12 fantasy football rankings. Thank you very much for everybody who joined us here at the Prime Sports World. But before we get up out of here, like we do every single week, Izzy, do you know who the highest scoring player in fantasy was in week number 11?
Joe Mixon had to be.
It was not Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon actually finished in 3rd.
Oh, no, Jared Goff, easily.
Jared Goff also not. It
was not?
Jared Goff was number 4.
4 touchdown passes?
34.5 points for Jared Goff, 35.3 points for Joe Mixon. There are 2 guys that had better fantasy days than those 2 guys.
Oh, my gosh. What's going on here? Oh, man. Had to be Iris. Yeah, you got me, brother. Who are they?
All right, so rounding out the top 5, Saquon Barkley with 33.8 fantasy points, Jared Goff with 34.5 fantasy points, Joe Mixon 35.3 fantasy. I don't know why that he has it should be Jared Goff at number 3. The Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown at number 2 with 38.7 fantasy points. And Mr. Pull a Rabbit out of their hat was the guy who had the highest daily fantasy score, Mr. Taysom Hill, with 7 carries for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns, 8 receptions for 50 yards, good for 41.52 fantasy points. That also includes a pick and a fumble. Are you kidding me, Taysom Hill? Are you kidding me? Taysom Hill, yeah, let's go. Yeah,
I didn't even realize he had that good of a game. I'm looking at man, I didn't even realize this. This is crazy.
If you were lucky enough and you rolled the dice and you were like, hey, I'm just gonna roll the dice on Taysom Hill, you were a very happy camper last week for sure. Like 41 points from the tight end.
Well, on PPR, 42.5. Yeah. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? What?
Yeah, it's crazy. But when it's all said and done, who will be the number 1 scorer in fantasy this week?
Number 1 scorer in fantasy this week, I can see. Oh man, this is a tough one.
Let me just jump in real quick. I'm going Jaden Daniels. I think he's going to have a get right game against the Dallas Cowboys. Look for him to throw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. I also look for him to have over 100 yards rushing, along with 1 on the ground. I know what that math is, but that's a massive fantasy football day for Jaden Daniels. He's my number 1 scorer in fantasy this week. Jaden Daniels, baby.
You know what? I know I got him at number 4. But the difference between 1 and 4 in the quarterback rankings is super close, in my opinion. Give me Kyler Murray against the Seattle Seahawks. He probably should have been my number 1 guy, but yeah, give me Kyler Murray. I think he runs for a couple scores. If not Kyler Murray, it's probably Jalen Hurts, but give me Kyler Murray this week. The difference between 1 and 4 is like super. There's no big. It's
you're like splitting hairs. You're splitting hairs at that
point.
Yeah,
it's super close. Yeah.
But thank you very much for everybody who joined us. Thank you, Dola, for hanging out for us the whole podcast. We really do appreciate it, my friend. This has been our 2024 fantasy football rankings for week number 12. Please share, and subscribe to the podcast as we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and we're also live on the Huddle Sports Network. You can find that on your Roku devices. I'm, of course, your host, David On Point Huppin. Right there, Mr. Israel Rivera. Easy. What do we do here at the Prime? My friend.
David, guess what? I brought the pen back.
Oh!
We bring the heat, ladies and gentlemen. Bringing the heat, baby.
We'll be back here tomorrow with the crossover, and then Izzy will also be back on Friday with College Football Showdown. You don't want to miss any of that content. So, yes, hit that like, hit that share, hit that subscribe button. We'll be back here tomorrow. You all have a good night and stay safe out there.
Peace out, brother. Good night.